Hello, my name is John Rose. In part one of this video series, we took a closer look at the chaga mushroom and a very brief look at melanin and an even briefer look at biophotons. In part two of this video series, I'd like to take a closer look at biophotons and melanin and mention one thing about those mushrooms, the chaga mushrooms. As part one emphasized or pointed out, it's the darkest of all the mushrooms because it's made up of 25% melanin. Now, we have to understand where this fits in the grand scheme of things. This mushroom does not remove primary causes. So I caution everybody never to take these mushrooms to try to heal yourself if you don't remove the primary causes. Remember, we always got to go upstream and correct the big mistakes we're making. Correct all of our mistakes, especially the first one, the big one, that got us where we are. And then we can, if we need to, use something like chaga. Now, in order to put all this in perspective, to understand biophotons and melanin, I like to put the human existence on a football field, and then we're also going to take a closer look at the electromagnetic spectrum. So if we put the human existence on a football field, I like using a football field for several reasons. I like it because it fits mathematically. A football field has 100 yards and there's 3 feet in each yard, so there's actually 300 feet in a football field. And we can take the human existence, and if we represent it based on the generations, there's 300,000 generations. So now every yard, or every 1%, represents 3,000 generations. Now that's important because the fall of mankind, the mistake we made that got us where we are now, happened on the 1 yard line, and we'll come back to that momentarily. But let's take a look at how everything got started, to put things in perspective based on our existence as one football field. If we use that, then the universe popped into existence either 2,500 football fields ago or maybe 2,350. Some people have modified that number lately. Either way, that's a lot of football fields, isn't it? Anyway, a long time ago, everything that we see in the universe now could fit in something the size of a little bitty green pea. That's all the energy we have now, but it was formless energy way back then at one point. And they call that 0-point energy. Now what happened is this 0-point energy, this formless energy, stepped down a level, went into space, and they refer to that as the Big Bang. And there's proof of that. Everywhere you look, we see that event. We see the remnants from that event, the light coming to us. See, when we look at the stars at night and the light coming to us, this is history, because it takes so long for light to reach us. And we can learn a lot about the whole planet based on the light coming to us, based on this electromagnetic spectrum. So what happened a long time ago, 0-point energy stepped down a level. What happens when energy steps down a level? Light is emitted. Why? Because there is light inside of it. Now some people are going to try to trick you and say, oh, it's dark matter inside there. No, that's not what happened. Light does not come from darkness. There was darkness, and then that little green pea went into space, became formed energy, vibrating energy. And the first vibrating energy, the first thought in space, was hydrogen. One of everything. One proton, one neutron, and one electron. One of everything. That's all we saw, hydrogen immediately. But what happened is those two hydrogen atoms fused together and became helium. Now we got 2 of everything. 2 neutrons, 2 protons, 2 electrons. And what happened then is helium collapsed upon itself, and that's what created a star. And in that event, heavier elements were formed. And then what happens with a star that's created is it uses up its fuel, lighter elements first. It burns up all of its hydrogen, then all the helium. It goes on and on and on. By the time it gets down to nickel, it only takes about a day to burn up all the nickel. But eventually it's going to get down to iron. It can't go any further, and it implodes. And if it's a big star, they call that a supernova. Or if 2 medium stars collide, they call that a supernova also, because that's what creates heavier elements. So we have all these elements in our universe. And it's all vibrating energy with a lot of space around it. A little bitty speck of that green pea is in everything you see. It's all vibrating energy. And that happened about 2,500 football fields ago, maybe 2,350. Then 750 football fields ago, the Earth and our solar system popped into existence. 500 football fields ago is when we had the first life on this planet in the ocean in the form of a prokaryotic cells, bacteria. Single-stranded DNA, it multiplies by cutting in half. That's what happened 500 football fields ago. Then, it wasn't until 217 football fields ago when we had the first life on land in the form of a fungus. Those were mushrooms. So these guys have been around 217 times longer than we have. And then it wasn't until 117 football fields ago that we finally had plant life. Plants could not exist without the fungus because the fungus is needed for the root system to get what it needs from the soil. Then 100 football fields ago, the first animals appeared. 1 football field ago, here we come. 2/3 into our existence, our brains nearly doubled in size, going from just under 400 cc's to almost 800 cc's. That allowed us to master things we'd never mastered before. We went another 20 yards on this football field. If we round up 2/3 to 67, that would be to the 87-yard line, 13 yards away from where we are now. And we were finally able to do something with that brilliant brain we hadn't done before. 1.2 million years later. It took a long time. Where's my dog? There she is. Okay. And then that would be represented by about 40,000 generations. We went 37,000 generations before we finally made a bad application. So 3,000 generations ago, on the 1-yard line, 99% into our existence, we finally made a bad application. That is the fall of mankind. That's the original sin that happens in the second stage of knowledge. And I still get people saying, oh, John, that's not the fall. Something happened before then. And you don't understand that there's 3 stages of knowledge. And when you talk about the fall of mankind, I actually represent that with 7 different pieces. And I won't go into that now, but yes, something did happen before then. And the key here is we can't go back the way we came. We got to go back a different way. So it doesn't matter what we did. It doesn't matter what we did in order to correct what we did. That's the most important part. So once again, how does this all fit together? Well, when this energy steps down a level, what happens? Light is emitted. Now we go back to this light. What happens with light, with electromagnetic energy? There are 11 main areas with electromagnetic energy. At the very base, at the very low end of it, we have very low frequency waves. Moving on up, then we get radio waves, then telephone waves, then microwaves, then terahertz waves, and then radar waves, then infrared rays, then we get finally visible light, ultraviolet light, X-rays, and then gamma rays. Now let's go back down to number 4, our visible light. 7 main colors in this area, going from 380 to 780. We start at the low end with red, then we go to orange, then yellow, then green, then blue, then indigo, then violet. Now, there are only 3 main rays of light. And our eyes have 3 receptor sites for those 3 main rays. So all colors come from these 3 primary colors. And those 3 primary colors are red, green, and blue. Now I know a lot of you are thinking, well, wait a second, I thought it was red, yellow, blue. Well, no, that's what we do with pigments. When you're using colors and pigments, the 3 primary colors would be red, yellow, and blue. Yellow, blue make green. But with light, we have red, green, and blue, and then the red-green make the yellow. So, where do biophotons fit in all of this? Well, biophotons fit in this visible light. But it's ultra-weak photon emissions with a visibility of 1,000 times lower than the sensitivity of our naked eye. So we can't see the biophotons, but with sophisticated equipment, we can measure these, and we know that the fall of mankind occurred When we took the first thing we mastered, fire, applied it to our food, we started cooking our food. That is the fall of mankind. It's the original sin, because the sin is a mistake. That's in the second stage of knowledge. I still have people going, oh, John, it's up here in the first stage. And again, we can't come back the way we came. We got to go back a different way. So there's two ways the fall of mankind need to be understood. How did it happen in the beginning, and how is it happening now? Well, the way it's happening now is through our traditions. We're starting off on the wrong path with false knowledge in the first stage of knowledge. That allows us to make the mistakes in the second stage. That's the real sin, because that's what a sin is. It's a mistake. And that's how we end up in the third stage of knowledge in hell, where we have the dark ages. So this is where biophotons are at. They're part of the visible light. Now, how about melanin? Where does melanin fit? Well, I need to double check this, but I read the other day it's C18, H10, N2O4 is the chemical makeup of melanin. Now, to understand melanin, you have to understand there's three types of melanin. One is specific to the brain. It's not the same as the other two. One is you see in darker skinned people, and the other is in lighter skinned people. The key here is we all have the same amount of melanin, it's just a different type. So there's no superiority of having more melanin. And melanin isn't coming from black matter, as some of these people say. It isn't carbon. It's part of carbon. 95% of the compounds is made up of carbon on this planet. We're carbon based. So you can't say, oh, melanin is everything and that it's dark matter, because we know 96% of our universe is made up of dark matter and dark energy. And again, some of these people are saying we're superior because we're melanated. We come from dark matter, it's the whole universe. No, that's not what's inside dark matter. Light can't escape. That means there's light inside there. There isn't darkness in there. We don't come from darkness. That's not what's inside the little bitty green pea. You really think there's darkness inside the green pea and then it steps down a level, all of a sudden light comes out of nowhere? No, light is emitted. Everything comes from this light, and this is the biophoton. So when light is emitted from the green pea coming down into space, it's how everything communicates. So that's what biophotons are. That's why they're so important. So don't focus on something trivial like the amount of melanin in your skin. Focus on the amount of biophotons you have in your cells, because that's what matters. If you're going to say I'm superior, that's what it should be based on. What are your biophoton levels? I don't care what kind of melanin you have. This creates the divide and conquer strategy that the psychopaths who rule the world use to control us. Please don't fall into that. It doesn't matter if someone's superior over the other person anyway. The only thing that matters is our biophoton levels. Got to correct the fall of mankind. And realize a lot of things that people claim is the fall are actually symptoms from the fall. Remember, when we make the first mistake, we destroy a nutrient that feeds one of our senses, the biophotons. We lose one of our senses. Now we have the wrong mentality. And from that condition, I coined hypoheliosis, we got all types of symptoms. Greed, for example. The dark side of our behavior, for example. That's not what's causing anything, that's the symptom of it. And yet I'm having people going, oh, John, you're not going upstream far enough. This is what's causing it. No, that's the ripple effect, and it's the biggest obstacle we have. So we have to understand that, yes, we have to go upstream, and when we go upstream, we get reconnected. We bump up the biophoton levels. And then when we go downstream, we look at how our body's damaged, and then we can determine whether or not we could use something like the chaga mushroom to help repair some DNA damage. But guess what else repairs DNA damage? It's all those micronutrients we're getting by eating a plant-based diet, a raw, vegan, plant-based diet, especially those leafy greens. That's where we're getting all those micronutrients, all the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants, and those things we know clean cells and repair DNA damage. So, folks, we have to understand how important our choices are in life. We have to understand how important biophotons are. And that's the only thing that really matters. We got to bump up our biophotons. And what's the easiest way to do it? What's the fastest way to do it? A solid food vacation. Dr. Pop knows when you do a solid food vacation, it bumps them up to 114. Muscles are down here between 1,000 to 23,000, should be at 83,000. born at 43,000, will jump on a solid food vacation, bump up those biophotons, and I guarantee you're in for a treat.